Hey, 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 Nicole Roberts Jones here, and welcome back. Welcome to another episode of the Meaningful Work Podcast, a time I connect your work with what gives your life meaning and fulfillment. Excited to be in part three of a series called Listen, Will You Shift or Blend In? It's really a call to shift or blend in. And really, I'm walking you through all the insight of EQ. We focus so much on IQ that we live out EQ, our emotional intelligence, your emotional quotient, right? And so here in part three, just quick reminder of the Bible verse that's our foundation. Then God blessed them, and this is Genesis 1:28, by the way. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Fill the earth and subdue it is what we're focused on here. Now, I said this in part one. If you want to know about being fruitful and multiply and having dominion, that I talked about in part one, in season one. I think I put the link, I did. I put the link in part one of this series. So go back and go watch that while I walked you through how to understand what your purpose is, because all of us have purpose. But here, I want you to understand that God created you to subdue. Now, subdue again means to overcome, to quiet, or bring under control. Now, for the first episode, I used a Bentley as an example, right? Because a Bentley never goes on sale. Listen, many of us discount ourselves, but God created you to be a Bentley. Somebody just needs to tweet that I am a Bentley. Last episode, part two, I used a lion as our example. This episode, I'm using one of my favorite boxers, Ms. Layla Ali, as an example. So to subdue is to overcome. And you've got to know the difference between when it's time to overcome and when it's time to move on. Because there are times that you need to move on, right? So again, you have to know when to subdue versus when to move on. Subdue or overcome. Okay. So for this episode, no, let me just say it like this first. You have to know when is your battle to overcome. You got to know when it's your battle. So Esther totally last episode showed us the example of when it's your battle. But how do you know when it's not your battle? Now, I'm going to encourage you, if you missed part one or part two, go back and listen, especially to part two, because I talked to you about how to self-regulate. It's in that quiet moment when you pause that you learn whether you're meant to overcome or move on, whether you're meant to go through it or deal with it or move on from it. And there's a difference, and I'm going to show you that in two stories here in the Bible, right? So the first story is the woman with the issue of blood. Let me hope I can read it. Don't laugh at me, y'all, that are watching me if I have to put my glasses out. Let me see if I can read this. Matthew 9:20 through 22, woman with the issue of blood. Now, here is what it says in the Bible. And suddenly, a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came from behind and touched the hem of his garment. For she said to herself, if only I may touch his garment, I shall be made well. But Jesus turned around, and when he saw her, he said, be of good cheer, daughter, your faith has made you well. And the woman was made well from that hour. So this is subdue. The reason I said subdue is a woman with the issue of blood. First of all, she wasn't supposed to be out in public. So she's already going against norms being out in public, let alone to be trying to get close enough to Jesus to touch Jesus. I'm sure people all around him were like, what in the world? But what Jesus did was he saw how she overcame all the haters and things people would say, and the fact that she had been bleeding for 12 years. And we talking about that time of the month, y'all, 12 years. So she probably stank too. I said stank. So she didn't care about what anybody else had to say or what anybody else had to do. She did what she knew she had to do in that moment. That's an example of what it looks like to overcome, to subdue. Now, our second example is the children of Israel. Because sometimes you got to know when enough is enough. You got to know when it's time to throw in the towel. You got to know when it's over. It's time to move on. Now, if you know the story of the children of Israel, they were in the wilderness. It should have taken a 40-day trip, I think it was, 40 days. It took them 40 years. Can I tell you why it took them 40 years? Well, let me just read this. Because then it came a time when God said, okay, y'all, enough is enough. He had to take them out of that, right? You have skirted this mountain long enough. Turn northward. You've skirted this mountain long enough. It's 40 years. Listen, the reason why it took them 40 years and God finally said, okay, God said enough is enough. But they had the power to do that. Do you know why they went around that same mountain? Because they were negative. They were all the negative chatter, all the negative things, all the negative that they kept spewing out, kept them stuck right where they were. They could have moved on so much sooner, quicker, faster had they gotten rid of that. So there's a difference, y'all, with overcoming something and having to move on for something. The reason I'm sharing the children of Israel is because sometimes there are people on your team, at your job, in your organization, what have you, that are just going to stay negative no matter what. That no matter what you do, you can't overcome it. You got to know when enough is enough. When you've tried everything you've done, you've prayed, you stood still, you've done all the things and nothing shifted, you got to know when enough is enough. And you only get that by doing the first three. Self-awareness, again, going back to episode 1, where I gave you that emotional wheel and sitting with what's coming up for you right now. Tapping into why are you doing this? Why are you here? What's your motivation? And then with those two, self-regulating. Because if you're not self-aware to know that you're feeling something in this moment and you can't tap into what you're feeling, and then you can't regulate it. Because listen, the thing I love about Layla Ali is no matter what, her confidence, no matter what, she would be in a fight and she knew she was going to win. But then she also had to self-regulate that during the fight. So the last two, so we've been walking through the 5 core components of emotional intelligence. So again, the first one was self-awareness, the second is motivation, the third is self-regulation. So I'm going to walk you through the last 2 here in this episode. Okay, got your pen, y'all? So the fourth one is empathy. So empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. So now it's not just about you. Okay, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. And I'm going to tell you, how do you have empathy if you don't stop and take the time to listen actively? Listen is an action, y'all. You can't talk and listen at the same time. Can't. So it's taking it all in and stopping and reflecting. Sometimes it's that pause that you might need to take, just taking it all in. Nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to defend, just taking it all in. The second one is reading nonverbal cues. Reading nonverbal cues, if I can get it out. So sometimes people are showing you what's coming up for them. They might not be speaking it, but they're showing you. So if we go back to Esther and the king, I bet you Esther was reading the king's nonverbal clues or cues. It could be clues or cues. It could be either one, right? And part of that was telling her when she could make the request, when she could make her petition. If you missed part 2, go back and watch part 2 where I walked you all the way through Esther's story. So it's really, really taking the time to be here fully and completely with the person that you are in conversation with. And sometimes it's a team. Listen, when I am speaking at an event, I have an agenda, but then there's something that's present in the room. I've got to pay attention to that something present in the room. This is what makes great preachers preach well, because they have their sermon notes, but then something's present in the room. It's reading those nonverbal cues. I don't know why I can't say that word today. And really is being present with what's coming up for you in the space, because it's not about you. And as a leader, it's not about you. It's about your team. It's about the deliverables. It's about how to get to whatever strategic plan you have for the year, whatever your goals are. And then lastly, you've got to do with empathy is respond with compassion and insight. So as you're listening actively to your team member who's frustrated or whatever they're going through, when you're reading their nonverbal cues, and then taking the time to take all that in, and then crafting a response. So I use this example in part 2. I'm going to use it here. I told you I had a program working with teenage girls, at-risk teenage girls for 20 years. And one of my girls in South Central LA was in a gang. When she got in my face and said, I forgot what she said. I think she said, who you think you are, whatever. I took a deep breath in. See, what I was doing was challenging who she was, and I knew I was. I was challenging what she knew. So when I said to her, "Okay, so what now?" Can I tell you, I was in DC speaking at a Department of Children and Family Services event, and I remember it was boys and girls at this event. And one of the boys, everybody's like, "Oh, he's a tough one." And everybody was, telling me be careful of him, and he kept interrupting me. So I said, "Okay, so since you want to talk, how about I sit down and I'll let you teach?" And he looked at me. He said, "What you say?" I said it again. I said, "How about you teach and I sit down since you have so much to say?" I said it very calmly, and I went and sat down. He was like, "No, no, 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 no. That's okay. That's okay." I said, "Okay." Then when I'm teaching, you listen, and when you teach, I'll listen. And he said, "Okay, respect." And from that moment on, for the rest of my workshop, he was the one who was making everybody be quiet. So I pick up on what's present in the atmosphere. That's what empathy is about because it's bigger than you. It's bigger than how you feel. But if you don't tap into your emotions to understand what's coming up for you and get that in check first before you begin to empathetically look and read throughout the room, you'll miss all the cues that are present. That's why that self regulation is important. That's why you've taken that pause is important. That's why all this work we've done up until this moment is important because if you don't stop and check in with what's coming up for you and check it, then your response would be based on your emotion and not what needs to happen in the atmosphere. Is that a difference? So then once you get your empathy in check, this one you guys are gonna say, yeah, yeah, I already know this one, right? Social skills. This is the fifth one. Social skills. Now, social skills is about the ability to build and maintain healthy relationships. Do you know the number of times that I work in, whether I was a consultant or in my current role, that things aren't happening because relationships aren't built? And relationships don't happen overnight, not good ones. It takes time. It takes time in you being consistent, you showing who you are, you showing that you're trustworthy, that you're knowledgeable, all the things. But it's building between you and that other person. It's not just about you again. Again, remember, I told you this episode is not about you. So it's ability to show how you can build together. This is what makes great relationships. And it was interesting when I think about the ability to build and maintain healthy relationships. So my husband, who is really my best friend. And it's interesting because we laugh about this all the time. We finish each other's sentences. I mean, he'll say a word and then I'll sing he'll say one word and then I'll sing a song that he's thinking in his head. He'll say, "Oh, let's go out." And I'll say, I'll sing a song that has to do with that. Are y'all getting this? Because I feel like I'm confusing things. But we laugh at each other because the fact that we can both do that, and he'll go, "Oh my God, I was just thinking of that song too." But that's because we have a relay. Think about what a relationship is. It's a relay. And a relay doesn't happen well, a relay race, if you don't pass the baton right. So some of you are thinking you're building healthy relationships and you're not because you're not passing the baton. Anytime you're having communications, whether it's in an email, are you honoring the dignity of people's human spirit? Whether you're in a meeting, are you doing that? How are you pulling people up and passing the baton to help them win as equally as you help yourself win? Because you all on the same team. If you're working in the same company, you're on the same team. And I think oftentimes we don't stop long enough to realize that if we're in this relay together, how we both run is equally important. It's not just about how I run, it's about how you run too. Because when I move, you move just like that. Hello. Hello. Ludicrous. When I move, you move just like that. That's what social skills, that's what building healthy relationships are about. And that's a part of emotional intelligence. How do you build while you climb? How do you bring others up with you? How do you make sure you're building bridges and not burning bridges? All this has to do with building social skills. So here's the things here. You got to communicate clearly. You've got to communicate clearly. You can't expect for people to read your mind. That's the one thing I would say. My husband and I got that on lock because we totally will say, well, let me tell you what I was thinking. Because even though I've been married for almost 20 years, that brother still don't understand what I'm thinking. Right. So I communicate it. I got to communicate to my team what I'm thinking. I got to communicate. The thing I love when I'm working with a team is how I will always bring things to the table, even if I'm leading the team. It's not a dictatorship. How do I make everybody feel equal part in what we're doing, right? The next one is how do you manage conflict effectively. I did a whole episode on conflict. I'll put that here in the show notes. But listen, if you don't deal with it, a conflict can become like a cancer to your team. I hate to use this for an example. Any of you that are dealing with cancer, trust me, I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I'm not trying to minimize what you've gone through. But if you don't treat it, it spreads. So you've got to address conflict. You can't act like it's not there. And this goes to that you being choosing a discernment, or are you being I forgot the word. Hold on, y'all. I forgot the word from last episode. Let me look it up because it's sitting right here. Are are you it's fatigue. That's it. Are you discernment, or are you being fatigued? Are you decision fatigued? Decision fatigued. So discernment is going to allow you to take the time to do what you need to do so you're managing that conflict effectively. And again, sometimes you got to regulate yourself first before you can manage the conflict. And sometimes you got to know when it's time to move on. So sometimes you've done everything you can and the person's still not complying, still not, maybe it's time for them to go. You got to know when to subdue or move on. Last is inspire and influence others positively. You've got to take the time to really, really, and I spelled positively wrong, but y'all know I know how to spell positively. I think you know what's so interesting. I get so excited when I write these episodes that I do slides. Can I tell y'all a little secret here? I do slides because I don't want you to miss anything. Those of you that are here with me on YouTube, right? And because I know I already talk fast and I get excited, those of you that are really looking to grow from what I'm teaching, I want to make sure you miss nothing. So I do slides to do that. So, with that said, that is all five components of emotional intelligence, and I really want to encourage you to check where you are in these five. Right? So they are again self awareness, taking the time to sit with that emotional map I walked you through in episode one, and really pulling back how you feel, but how that's reacting, how that's showing up in other ways. So if you look at anger on that wheel, it'll show you all the things that are related to it. Motivation, your why behind anything you do. Do you often think about your why? Because if you're not connected to your why, then you won't do this work. You won't even want to grow. You'll want to blend in. If you're not connected to your why, then you won't want to make the shift that's needed to grow to your next level. Self-regulation. Think number 3 is my favorite, by the way, y'all. And I think that's my favorite because I realize when I can regulate myself, what I'm doing is giving others permission to regulate themselves. Come on, somebody. When I regulate myself, I'm giving other people permission. So again, I use that example of the girl that was in a gang. When I regulated myself, she regulated herself and she didn't even realize she was doing it. Why? Because I was showing her the way. Y'all get that? Empathy and really thinking about the other person that has something to do or say, right? You know, what's interesting as a leader, and dare I say as a social worker, because I am, graduate degree in social work, so trained as a social worker, I could usually see when other people's stuff is coming up. And so I have to take a moment to acknowledge it and to try to teach to it. So like that girl that was in the gang, I ended up finding out she was in the foster care system and that she didn't think she had family. Oh, she had family then after that. She felt like she was fighting it all on her own. So it makes sense to why she was like that. Empathy helps you see that because I began to take the time to get to know her after that. And in social skills, building relationships. So I'm using this example when I was working with teenage girls again. So I realized it was bigger than just that girl. I had to build relationships with her family. I had to get to know her mom, her dad, her grandmother, who she lived with. Even that girl was in the gang, her foster mom. When I got to know all the people around them, it helped me understand them. So it's the same thing at your team, at your job. No matter if you're the vice president, the CEO, the whatever you are, C-suite, or if you're a manager, director, when you begin to get to know all the people and all that interface with them, you get to know them at a different level. This is how you raise your EQ. This is why, when On Monday morning, do you say, "How was your weekend? What did you do?" This is where you find out their personal things, not because you're trying to get in their personal business. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is it allows you to see inside of who they be when they're not at their job. Some people don't allow you to see all of them, the real them. And if you're going to have empathy and build a relationship, you've got to get to know them at their core. You got to get to know what they care about, what they're doing when they're not at work. What lights their soul on fire? All the things. Taking the time to get to know people makes a difference and how you grow your team to be a winning team, to advance those KPIs like nobody's business, to allow your team to feel seen and heard so that you all can get paid, right? So, emotional intelligence, and really this conversation that I've had with you in this three-part series about, will you blend in or will you shift? Will you do the work to heighten your emotional intelligence? Will you do the work to stop complying and fitting into somebody else's definition of you, to push past it? If the children of Israel had stopped sitting in negative and stopped sitting in all their woe is me, they would have moved on past where they were in 40 days instead of it taking 40 years. And many of you, the reason your relationships aren't working, the reason your career isn't working, the reason why things are working is because you stay focused on negative. Time to make a shift. Time to take the time to do the emotional work to see what's coming up for you. And listen, sometimes this stuff gets hard. So I'm going to encourage you, if you have health insurance, counseling comes with health insurance, go meet with a counselor. And I get this question all the time. How do I know a counselor is a good fit? You can date a counselor, meaning have one session. If they don't feel like a good fit, say, I don't feel like you're a good fit. Find another one. So every counselor I've had, I've found on Psychology Today. I read through their bio, their resume. I look at if they have Instagram or Facebook, I look through their accounts to see if they feel like they'd be a good fit. And if they do, then I hire them. Because listen, I'm looking at their EQ. I'm looking at if they have personal stuff. I'm looking at who they be and how they show up to be. I encourage you to do the same. Because oftentimes we think, well, I'm stuck and I should be able to figure this out. I'm smart. You're smart, but you're not smart in this. The reason I know any of this is because one, I'm a social worker, and two, I've been in counseling. So a lot of these exercises I'm giving you are exercises my counselor has given to me. So with that said, because this has been such a heavy insight, heavy because it's got heavy because you need to work on you, I'm going in here because I can keep going. I want to encourage you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear takeaways. I want to hear how you're going to do things differently. I want to hear how you're going to make a shift. I want to hear all the things because again, I'm not here for me. I'm here for you, and I don't know that it's working, or you're working it unless you tell me. And I love when I see you at events, you come up to me. I love that. But many of you, I won't ever get to see you at an event. So send me an email or comment on social media. Let me hear your takeaways. Number one. Number two, I'm going to always encourage you to share because, again, there are people in your network that are dealing with things that you don't even know they're dealing with because they just haven't talked about it. So with that said, it's always my honor and my privilege to pour into you. This is the end of our three-part series. Will you blend in or will you shift? Shift or blend in? My challenge to you is to shift, to do the work you need to do to heighten your EQ to become the highest and best version of who God created you to be. All right? I'll see you for the next one. Bye, y'all.